Extreme weather events are more frequent and more costly than ever. That is not a political statement. It's a researchable fact. Through the first 6 months of this year, insured losses to extreme weather events exceeded $34 billion. That is the highest amount ever recorded in a 6-month period in America. Now, the amount I just gave you, $34 billion, does not account for damages in Maui from a wildfire fueled in part by drought and winds from Hurricane Dora. It does not account for Hurricane Idalia that is now churning through Georgia, but has already brought historic storm surge and attendant damage to parts of Big Bend, Florida. If you thought this was a matter of concern only for those in the path of extreme weather events, think again. Across the country, insurance companies are raising property insurance rates to compensate for losses suffered to weather events and losses that are sure to come. The economics of extreme weather insurance are, in a word, ugly. Since January of 2022, 31 states have seen double-digit rate increases on property insurance. In 6 states, those increases were between 20% and 30%. The federal government can backstop some of the costs of extreme weather and can assist communities rebuild that which is not covered by insurance. But Washington's ability to do that is now in doubt. We'll have more on that in just one moment. First, we take stock of Hurricane Idalia as it roars through Savannah, Georgia, which is where we find CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez. Manny, how are you and what do you see?
Major, we're doing okay right now as the storm begins to lose its hurricane status. There are lulls, and then there are times like this where you'll get a wind coming through. There have been some pretty strong squalls throughout the afternoon here in Savannah that bends the trees and has that pelting rain along with it. But it's not as bad, clearly, as when it came through Florida. But that doesn't mean that the impacts here and the threat are any less as the evening goes on. One of the things we've been looking at is the Savannah River. When you get a squall going through, that water really gets churning. But the concern here and for low-lying areas of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, isn't just the possibility of bodies of water like this flooding or the storm surge that could be associated with the storm, but it's also the flash flooding that is expected to happen with all of that rainfall that could be coming downstream. So in these low-lying areas, you have those things coming together, and that could leave communities waterlogged.
Manny, do you have a sense yet as to whether or not the storm itself has passed entirely over Savannah, or you might still be getting some tail effects?
I think we will continue to get some of the tail effects. The Savannah mayor, I should say, said earlier that he believed that from 5 p.m. to 10 is what he said, is when you have the stronger or the bigger potential for power outages.
Start medium,
because you have the backside of the storm
out.
Potentially moving through here. As far as the Carolinas, however, the big concern now is the possibility of tornadoes. There are active tornado warnings that we've been seeing in the Carolinas, and that's going to extend into the night. So the flooding and the tornadoes are a concern for the Carolinas, as clearly we're getting a bit of a wind coming through here now. You can see that Idalia is by no means done with this part of the South.
And I want to go back to something you mentioned initially, Manny, because I think it's important. Even when it passes, there will be rain elsewhere, and the flow of that rain will come to areas that may already be saturated, raising flooding risks. Do I have that correct?
That's correct. And the real risk to people who decided not to evacuate some of these low-lying areas or barrier islands is that if you have a flooded road and you need help, well, they may not be able to get to you. And those are, lagging effects that can happen after the storm. And overpasses and bridges currently shut down in this area because of the wind.
Can we have
so people at this
Cesario,
point, the window to kind of get
can you stand in, Cesario?
Closed,
can you stand in?
So you're really hoping that it continues to move and move quickly.
On the scene for us in Savannah, Georgia, Manuel Bojorquez, thank you so much. The federal government is responding, of course, to Hurricane Idalia as it tears across the southeast. President Biden spoke earlier today about the administration's efforts.
I let each governor I spoke with know if there's anything the states need right now, I'm ready to mobilize that support.
I want to bring in our CBS News senior White House and political correspondent, Ed O'Keefe, who joins us from the North Lawn of the White House. Ed, summarize what's going on at the White House and the president's remarks, not just about this hurricane, but ongoing efforts to assist those still trying to recover from the wildfire in Maui.
I can.
Well, Major,
Thank you.
good to be with you. That was actually set to be the focus of a big meeting the president had this afternoon with members of his cabinet and the leaders of FEMA, the ongoing federal response to the search and rescue and cleanup in Maui. But in the last several days, when they saw the forecast, they realized this would also become a meeting about plans to respond to just the latest hurricane to hit
You
the
have
southeast.
to start medium,
So
by the way.
This afternoon, he
'Cause
spent
he's gonna be in
a
a
good
box.
chunk of time with the FEMA administrator, with the Defense Secretary, the Homeland Security Secretary, even the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, among others, here at the White House to discuss what they're doing in Hawaii to help rebuild Maui, specifically the Lahaina region,
So have him
and
stand
then
somewhere
how
here.
they're anticipating the cleanup will go in Florida, parts of Georgia, and the Carolinas. The president also today speaking with the governors of all of those states, Florida, the Carolinas, and Georgia, emphasizing that the federal government's there for them. The FEMA administrator is headed to Florida tomorrow to meet with Ron DeSantis, someone the president has spoken with at least twice this week. Notable, of course, because DeSantis has left the campaign trail for the state capitol and other parts of Florida to focus on his day job, even while he's trying to get Joe Biden's job.
Okay, let's do
Understood.
that. Let's do
And
that.
I just think it's worth
do
spending a
that.
second or
Let's do
two,
that.
Ed, to
Let's do that.
note that in times like this, partisanship can take a backseat to actual response and coordination from the
canceling the
federal
live show.
government
It's
to
not worth
state
it.
governments.
Thank you.
True?
Absolutely. And in the case of the president and the governor of Florida, that's the only time they've ever really interacted. Last October, the president was in Fort Myers to review damage from Hurricane Ian. Before that, it was the Surfside building collapse in South Florida, where the governor and the president sat with leaders of that community to go over how exactly that city would rebound from such a horrific tragedy. So the two of them really only have official, nonpartisan, very much government conversations about these kinds of natural or man-made disasters and have a good rapport at that level, certainly, based on conversations with people here at the White House and in Tallahassee. We'll see how the next few days go. And it certainly doesn't hurt the governor to be able to go home and save some campaign money by being able to focus on the official job, as he's justifiably doing and wanted to do, and will continue to do most likely in the coming days.
And Ed, I want to drill down a little bit more deeply into what the administration said and the president said about Lahaina and all the things that need to be done there and the very, very, very long road back to recovery. What kind of specifics did the president or the FEMA administrator lay out today?
Well, it's as minute as how to rebuild power lines in areas that have been affected by wildfires. The president got into great detail about reconstructing power grids in parts of the country that have been destroyed by fires and making sure that the poles can not only withstand extreme weather, but whether power companies should be shutting off the power preemptively with the threat of wildfires, because there's a belief that that was a big cause of the spread of it in Maui. Of course, there was a wildfire in California a few years back where similar allegations
I
were
heard
made.
that
The power
too. I
company
saw
has to
you.
pay up in response to that. So that's the kind of level of concern he has and that he's asking cabinet officials and other agency leaders about and that he'd like to see discussed. Remember, they got about $3.4 billion left in the Disaster Relief Fund, which is the account that pays out for a lot of this. FEMA has made clear everything that Maui needs, everything that Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas needs will be paid for, either with that money or with the likely billions of dollars more yet to come once Congress gets back and replenishes that fund, as often has to happen at about this point in a fiscal year when hurricanes start to hit and the money has to get spent.
And very quickly, Ed, on that replenishment of that FEMA account, it is tied to requests from the president to Congress for Ukraine aid and for disaster relief. What's the White House position on the likelihood of getting both in one package?
Well, and also border security funding as well on top of everything else. So it's the Ukraine and border security elements of about a $40 billion supplemental request that's going to be the subject of a lot of debate amongst Democrats and Republicans when they get back. But on disaster relief funding, that should move rather quickly. So let's see if there's a conversation about dividing the two and moving them separately. Disaster funding on its own, then the Ukraine and border security money and other things. White House isn't going to want to separate the two because they see them as joint priorities. Others may say you should move quickly to get that done.
Ed O'Keefe at the White House, we thank you so very much.